Imagine this. A hard-working, reliable man clocks out of work like he's done almost every day for nearly a decade. He grabs a coffee, drives to his parents' house, pulls up in the pouring rain, and then, within minutes, he's simply gone. No screams, no struggle, no evidence, not even footprints in the mud. His car is still there, unlocked, blocking the driveway. His coffee is still sitting untouched. But Kenneth Scott Reed vanished. And the strangest part? He had been threatened twice just days earlier. And on the last day anyone ever saw him, 5 acquaintances showed up at his job. People who had supposedly never been there before. So what happened to Kenneth Reed? Welcome back to Missing Persons Archives, the channel where we cover real missing persons cases, unexplained disappearances, and the stories that refuse to let themselves be forgotten. Tonight's case is one of those disappearances that feels almost impossible because it happens in broad daylight in a neighborhood during a rainstorm with witnesses nearby. This is the disappearance of Kenneth Scott Reed. Who was Kenneth Scott Reed? Kenneth Scott Reed was born on July 31st, 1964. From the beginning, Kenneth was the kind of guy who didn't follow the traditional path, but still worked harder than almost anyone around him. He dropped out of school in the 8th grade and later tried to complete an equivalency diploma through adult school, but he couldn't keep up because he was working so much. His job mattered to him a lot. Kenneth worked for BB Dairy, and in 1981, when he was only 16, he started at a restaurant called The Dairy as a dishwasher. But Kenneth wasn't just an employee. He was the kind of worker managers dream about, dependable, responsible, always present. Over time, he rose through the ranks until he became an assistant manager. And here's the detail that sticks out. Kenneth had a perfect attendance record. He had not missed a single day in 8 years. 8 years. That's not normal dedication. That's a lifestyle. He was known as fun-loving, a little charming, a sports fan, kind of a ladies' man. But he didn't have a serious girlfriend at the time. He lived in an apartment on Halls Avenue in Colchester, Connecticut, with a roommate. But very often he stayed at his parents' house in Norwich, partly because it was closer to work, and partly because Kenneth was deeply connected to his family. His mother was disabled, and even when he didn't need to stay over, he still stopped by. Not because he had to, but because he was that kind of son. The warning signs. Now, when we talk about disappearances, there are usually warning signs. And in Kenneth's case, there were 2 major ones. Threat number 1. On March 16, 1989, Kenneth fired an employee who had been at the dairy restaurant for years. The man agreed to resign by the end of the week, but he wasn't happy. Reportedly, he became aggressive, began throwing things, and made threats toward Kenneth. He had to be asked to leave. Threat number 2. Around the same time, Kenneth was also threatened by the new boyfriend of a woman Kenneth had previously dated. Some speculation says Kenneth may have been dating her while she was still involved with the other man, but that was never proven. Still, she spoke to Kenneth shortly before his disappearance, and she said he told her something that's easy to overlook, but hard to forget. He said he was depressed, and he didn't explain why. A longtime friend, Ray Skidgel, would later tell investigators that Kenneth sometimes got bored with his job and fell into depression, but it never lasted long. Ray said Kenneth would sometimes tell him, "Ray, I don't know," and the way Ray described it, it sounded like Kenneth wasn't sure what to do with his life anymore. Not suicidal, just uncertain, restless. March 24th, 1989, the last day. Now we get to the day everything stops making sense. March 24th, 1989. Kenneth clocks out of work at 3:26 p.m. like normal. His manager, Michael Thorne, said Kenneth seemed tired, but he was also excited because Kenneth was about to start a 10-day vacation, and that's important because Kenneth was the kind of man who never missed work. So the idea of a 10-day break, it meant something. Kenneth's brother Donald later said Kenneth had spoken to Sunnyside of Travel in Ledyard, Connecticut, but he hadn't booked anything. No tickets, no hotel, no official travel plan. And his family said if Kenneth was planning a trip, he would absolutely have told them. Then something strange happens. Michael Thorne would later tell investigators that on Kenneth's last day at work, 5 acquaintances came into the restaurant specifically to speak with Kenneth, and according to him, those people had never come in there before. He didn't think much of it at the time, but later, it felt wrong, like Kenneth had something going on that no one else understood. Before leaving, Kenneth told Michael he'd be coming in 45 minutes early the next day to help open and handle general duties, which tells us one thing clearly. Kenneth wasn't planning to disappear. He was planning to be at work. That night, a waitress named Jean Bessette said Kenneth agreed to meet her and other co-workers at the Norwich Sheraton, but he never showed. It had been raining hard all day, so they assumed he didn't want to go out. Then Kenneth leaves work. He stops at a donut shop, gets a coffee, and drives to his parents' home in Norwich. His father sees him pull up. Kenneth parks his gray 4-door Isuzu I-Mark in front of the house. But because of the heavy rain, his father goes back inside quickly, and that's it. Kenneth never makes it into the house, never calls, never shows up again. The car, the coffee, the silence. Now here's where this becomes one of those cases that borders on unreal. Kenneth's vehicle is left parked in a way that blocks his parents' driveway, and someone nearby notices that. Some sources say it was a neighbor. Other sources say it was a friend staying with the family. But either way, it's observed quickly. The car is there, and it's wrong, because Kenneth apparently never blocked the driveway. And Ray Skidgel says something else that makes this chilling. Kenneth always drank his coffee, no matter what, but the coffee was left untouched, sitting in or on the vehicle. Even worse, the car was reportedly unlocked. Kenneth always locked it. There was no sign of a struggle, no shattered glass, no blood, no torn clothing, no drag marks, nothing. It's like someone hit pause on his life and walked off with the remote. And then comes what might be the most baffling detail of all. Kenneth isn't reported missing until March 27th, 3 days later. His parents said they waited because Kenneth sometimes went out without telling anyone. Maybe he was with friends. Maybe he went off with a woman. And normally he'd show back up in a day or two. But this time felt different. They said too many things seemed off, and Kenneth wasn't someone who vanished without a trace. Police begin investigating. They interview around 20 people. Friends, co-workers, family. They dig into the threats Kenneth received. They search Norwich, the surrounding area. They even bring in German shepherds to search the woods near a river close to his parents' home. They search the banks of the Yantic River. They use helicopters. They issue a nationwide bulletin, and it produces nothing. No body, no trail, no suspects, not even a credible lead. Kenneth's bank account was never touched again. He left behind a brand new stereo system. Even his vacation pay remained unclaimed. Like the world froze at 3:26 p.m. on March 24th, 1989, and never resumed. So what happened? Theory 1, foul play connected to threats. This is the obvious one. 2 threats in 1 week. A fired employee turning violent, a jealous boyfriend, and the truly odd detail, 5 acquaintances showing up at work. If Kenneth was lured, confronted, or ambushed, it would explain the suddenness. But the problem is, there's no struggle, no vehicle tracks, no evidence. And Kenneth wasn't an easy target. Theory 2, voluntary disappearance. Some cases involve people walking away from their lives, but Kenneth left behind money, belongings, his job, his family, and never accessed his bank account again. He didn't book travel. He didn't tell anyone. And he promised he'd be at work early the next day. That doesn't sound like a planned exit. Theory 3, the impossible vanishing. And this is where the case starts to feel like a category of disappearances we cover again and again. Bad weather, limited visibility, noise masking sound, a narrow window of time. It was pouring rain. If something happened out there, if Kenneth stepped away for just a moment to check the mail, adjust something in the driveway, or even walk toward the mailbox, it creates a terrifying possibility that he didn't disappear in an elaborate scheme. He disappeared because something happened in a moment when the environment made it easier for the world to swallow him whole. Still, no tracks, no witnesses, no evidence. It's one of those cases that makes you wonder if reality sometimes has holes. Kenneth Scott Reed was 5 feet 8 inches, around 140 to 150 pounds, medium build, blonde hair, brown eyes, dark mustache, and described as having a darker complexion. He was last seen wearing gray pants and white Nike Air Jordan sneakers with blue stripes. He is classified as an endangered missing person. And if Kenneth is alive today, he would be in his early 60s. This is a case that deserves more attention because nobody should be able to vanish like this. If you have any information about Kenneth Scott Reed, contact Connecticut State Police or your local authorities. And as always, if you found this case important, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because every single share keeps these stories alive. And the more people who hear these names, the better the odds someone remembers something they've kept silent for far too long. I'll see you in the next case.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.